It all started with a simple request: wait a little longer. Those 5 words echoed in my mind for what felt like an eternity. At first, I thought it was sweet, romantic even. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, that initial excitement began to sour into something darker: doubt. The person I loved most in this world, the one who had promised me the greatest surprise of my life, now seemed distant, almost secretive. Every time I asked if we were close, they would deflect with vague reassurances. Not yet. Or, just be patient. Patient? How could I be patient when every moment felt like torture? I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself that love required sacrifice, but the questions gnawed at me relentlessly. Was this gift really worth all the waiting? Or was I being strung along on some wild goose chase? What if this wasn't about a gift at all? My imagination spiraled out of control, conjuring scenarios where I was the victim of an elaborate prank, or worse, a betrayal. One night, as I sat alone in the dim glow of my bedside lamp, I heard it. A faint creak outside my window. My heart froze. I told myself it was just the wind, but deep down, I knew better. Someone, or something, was out there, watching me. Panic surged through my veins as I tiptoed to the window, peering cautiously into the darkness. Nothing moved, yet the sensation of unseen eyes lingered. It was then that paranoia truly took hold. Could this have anything to do with the mysterious gift I'd been promised? Was someone trying to sabotage it? Or worse, sabotage us? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Why couldn't they just tell me the truth? Why keep me in the dark, both literally and figuratively? Each passing day brought new doubts, new fears. And still they insisted, wait a little longer. Those words, once comforting, now felt like chains binding me to a fate I couldn't escape. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The gift wasn't just any ordinary surprise. It was supposed to be the moment that would define our love story. But as the days stretched into weeks, I began to realize just how monumental this task truly was. The universe seemed determined to test my resolve at every turn. First came the freak storm that flooded my basement, destroying half of the materials I had painstakingly gathered for months. Then a sudden outbreak of illness swept through the neighborhood, forcing me into quarantine and leaving me with nothing but time to obsess over whether I'd ever finish in time. And yet none of those challenges compared to the constant prying eyes of Mrs. Henderson, the nosy neighbor who lived next door. She acted like she cared, bringing over casseroles and offering help. But I knew better. Her questions were always too pointed. What are you working on? Why all the secrecy? Are you sure you're not up to something illegal? It got so bad that I started sneaking out late at night to work on the project in secret, hiding tools and supplies under old tarps in the garage. One evening, while lugging a heavy bag of chemicals inside, I tripped and spilled some of the solution onto my arm. The burn was immediate and excruciating, a stark reminder of how dangerous this endeavor could be if I made even the slightest mistake. But the clock was ticking louder than ever. The deadline loomed ahead. Honey's birthday, exactly 3 weeks away. If I didn't have everything ready by then, the entire plan would collapse. And so would my heart. This wasn't just about giving her a gift anymore. It was about proving to both of us that I could create something extraordinary, something worthy of her. Every sleepless night spent tinkering with wires or mixing volatile compounds felt like a step closer to either triumph or disaster. And still, doubt lingered in the back of my mind. What if I failed? What if, after all this effort, she didn't understand, or worse, didn't care? One particularly tense afternoon, as I struggled to assemble the final piece of the puzzle, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. The instructions were written in technical jargon I barely understood, and the tools required precision far beyond my skill level. My hands trembled as I tightened a bolt, only for the whole contraption to collapse in front of me. Frustration boiled over, and I slammed my fist against the table, splitting the skin on my knuckle. Blood dripped onto the floor, mingling with scraps of metal and shards of broken dreams. For a moment, I considered giving up entirely, but then I thought of Honey. Her smile, her laugh, the way she looked at me like I was capable of anything. That image alone kept me going, even when failure seemed inevitable. As the days dragged on, my mind became a whirlwind of theories about what this mysterious gift could possibly be. At first, I tried to keep things lighthearted, throwing out absurd guesses just to see their reaction. "Is it a luxury car?" I asked one evening, imagining myself cruising down the highway in a gleaming red convertible. They shook their head with an enigmatic smile that only fueled my curiosity further. "A mobile home?" I ventured next, picturing us traveling across the country together, free from responsibilities. Again, they simply chuckled and said, "Nope." By now, frustration was beginning to creep in. Each wrong guess felt like another brick being added to the wall between us. It wasn't just the guessing game anymore. It had turned into something more personal, as if every rejection of my ideas was a rejection of me. One particularly tense afternoon, half joking but also half serious, I blurted out, "Is it a rare exotic pet? Like a tiger or something?" They froze for a split second before bursting into laughter, but there was something uneasy in their eyes. A flicker of hesitation that made me wonder if I was closer to the truth than I realized. Then came the moment that truly threw me off balance. In a fit of sarcasm, I joked, "Oh, I know. It must be a whale in a giant water tank." To my astonishment, instead of laughing it off, they tilted their head thoughtfully and muttered, "Well, you're not entirely wrong." My jaw dropped. What did that mean? Was it really some kind of aquatic creature? Or perhaps a metaphorical whale? Something enormous and impossible to ignore? Their cryptic response sent my imagination spiraling even further out of control. The mention of water didn't help clarify anything either. When I pressed them about why we needed so much water, they brushed it off vaguely, saying it was part of the preparation. Naturally, this led me down yet another rabbit hole of wild speculation. Was the gift tied to some sort of underwater escape room challenge? Maybe they were planning a treasure hunt where clues would float up from beneath the surface of a pool. The possibilities seemed endless and utterly maddening. Every new detail they dropped only deepened the mystery, leaving me oscillating between excitement and exasperation. One night, unable to sleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying all our conversations in my head. Hadn't they mentioned something about washing two cars at once earlier? Could it have been a metaphor for doubling efforts? Or was it literal? And then there was the business about text play, whatever that meant. All these fragmented pieces swirled together like puzzle fragments scattered across a table, refusing to form a coherent picture no matter how hard I tried to connect them. At times, I wondered if the entire ordeal was meant to drive me insane. Was this some elaborate prank designed to test my patience? Or worse, was I misinterpreting everything because I wanted it to be meaningful? The uncertainty gnawed at me, making each passing day feel heavier than the last. Yet despite all the confusion and mounting frustration, there was still a small part of me that clung to hope. If nothing else, their dedication to keeping this secret, even through floods, injuries, and nosy neighbors, proved how much they cared. Surely, whatever awaited me at the end of this journey would make all the waiting worthwhile. The financial strain of preparing the gift was like a storm cloud hovering over my life, casting shadows on everything I did. At first, I thought I could manage. After all, how expensive could a surprise really be? But as weeks turned into months, the costs spiraled out of control. The materials alone were astronomical. Rare metals, specialized tools, and equipment that seemed more suited for a NASA mission than a personal project. Desperate to fund it, I sold nearly everything of value I owned. My grandfather's watch, the one he gave me before he passed away, was the first to go. Then came the jewelry my mother had gifted me for graduation, followed by my car, the only means of transportation I had. Each sale felt like ripping a piece of myself away, but I told myself it would all be worth it in the end. When selling my belongings wasn't enough, I turned to the bank hoping for a loan. "What's this for?" the officer asked skeptically when I requested the funds. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "It's a gift," I stammered. He raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "A gift?" he repeated, his tone dripping with disbelief. Without a clear purpose or collateral, my application was denied. That rejection hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the money. It was the realization that no one understood the magnitude of what I was trying to achieve. Falling deeper into despair, I took on 3 jobs simultaneously just to stay afloat. By day, I worked at a construction site, hauling heavy materials under the scorching sun. In the evenings, I cleaned offices, scrubbing floors until my hands were raw. And at night, I stood guard at a bar in one of the roughest parts of town. A job so dangerous that even seasoned security guards warned me against taking it. But I didn't care. Every dollar earned brought me closer to completing the gift, and that singular focus kept me going despite the exhaustion. One fateful evening, while working at the bar, chaos erupted. 2 patrons got into a heated argument over spilled drinks, which quickly escalated into a violent brawl. Bottles shattered, chairs flew through the air, and screams filled the room. I tried to intervene, stepping between them to break up the fight, but someone shoved me hard, sending me crashing into a table. Pain shot through my side as glass shards dug into my skin. For a moment I lay there, dazed and bleeding, wondering if this was where it all ended. Was any of this truly worth it? What if Honey didn't understand the sacrifices I'd made? What if she hated the gift, or worse, thought it was ridiculous? As the adrenaline faded and the medics patched me up, I sat alone in the dimly lit parking lot afterward, staring blankly at the stars. My body ached, my wallet remained empty, and my dreams felt further away than ever. Yet even in my darkest moments, I couldn't bring myself to give up. Every bruise, every sleepless night, every ounce of pain, I convinced myself it was all part of proving my love. If I couldn't give her something extraordinary, then what kind of partner was I? So I swallowed my doubts, forced myself back onto my feet, and returned to work the next day, determined to see this through even if it killed me. The robbery happened on a night that felt like it was torn straight out of a nightmare. It wasn't just near where I was preparing the gift. It occurred right at the storage unit where I had hidden it, the one place I thought was safe. The sound of shattering glass jolted me awake in the middle of the night. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone and rushed to the scene, praying I wasn't too late. But when I arrived, chaos reigned supreme. A masked figure was already inside, rummaging through boxes, tossing everything aside in search of something valuable. And then they found it. The carefully wrapped package containing months of sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. I couldn't let them take it. Without thinking, I lunged forward, shouting for them to stop. The thief spun around, eyes wide with shock before narrowing into a glare. "Stay out of this," he snarled, shoving me hard against the wall. Pain exploded across my back as I hit the ground, gasping for air. He pulled out a gun, pointing it directly at me. Time froze. I stared down the barrel, convinced my life was over. But fate, or perhaps sheer luck, intervened. Just as he pulled the trigger, the weapon jammed. Seizing the moment, I scrambled to my feet and tackled him, sending us both crashing into a pile of crates. The noise drew attention, and soon sirens wailed in the distance. When the police arrived, things only got worse. Instead of being seen as a victim, I became their prime suspect. "Why were you here?" they demanded, skepticism dripping from every word. "What exactly is this gift you're talking about?" They searched the area but found no clear evidence tying the thief to the crime. Meanwhile, the stolen item, the culmination of all my efforts, was gone. As hours dragged on in that cold interrogation room, my frustration mounted. Every second wasted answering their questions felt like another nail in the coffin of my dream. By the time I was released, exhaustion weighed heavily on me. The world seemed darker, crueler than before. How could this happen? After everything I'd sacrificed, the sleepless nights, the financial ruin, the physical toll, it was all slipping through my fingers. In that moment, despair clawed at my chest, threatening to consume me entirely. But beneath the anguish, a spark of determination flickered to life. If the authorities wouldn't help, I would find the thief myself. I didn't care how dangerous it might be. Failure was not an option. That night, I vowed to track down whoever had stolen what mattered most to me. Even if it meant risking my own safety, I refused to give up. Not after coming so far. Little did I know the journey ahead would test me in ways I could never have imagined. The truth about the gift was as breathtaking as it was heartbreaking. It wasn't just some random object, it was a masterpiece. An enormous sculpture depicting two figures holding hands, crafted with intricate detail and profound symbolism. The artist had captured every nuance of our connection. The way we leaned into each other, the subtle intertwining of fingers that spoke of trust and unity. But its sheer size made it impossible to ignore, and unfortunately irresistible to those with ill intentions. That's what drew the thief in the first place. To them, it wasn't art, it was a trophy worth stealing, something they could sell on the black market for a fortune. I had hired professionals to orchestrate the unveiling, a grand event designed to make this moment unforgettable. There were lights strung up like stars, music composed specifically for the occasion, and even a red carpet leading up to where the statue stood proudly under a spotlight. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. Then came the chaos. The robbery shattered not only the sculpture, but also my dreams. When the police finally pieced together what happened, all that remained was a single shard of broken marble, jagged and cold in my trembling hands. When Honey saw me later, her expression shifted from confusion to devastation. "What is this?" she whispered, holding the fragment delicately as if it might crumble further at any second. I couldn't meet her eyes. Instead, I knelt before her, tears streaming down my face. "This was supposed to be your gift," I choked out, my voice cracking under the weight of regret. "It was meant to show you how much you mean to me, how much we mean." She didn't say anything at first, just stared at the tiny piece of rubble in disbelief. For weeks, months, years, she'd waited patiently while I poured everything I had into creating something extraordinary. And now, all she had to show for it was a meaningless scrap of stone. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Something so monumental, so symbolic of love and effort, had been reduced to nothing more than a memory, and not even a happy one. As Honey turned away, clutching the shard tightly, I felt the full force of failure crash over me. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every drop of blood and sweat, it all seemed pointless now. Yet despite the tragedy, there was a flicker of hope buried deep within the wreckage. Maybe someday she'd forgive me. Maybe, just maybe, she'd understand that my intentions were pure, even if the outcome was anything but. The legal consequences of the robbery were nothing short of catastrophic. What started as an act of love spiraled into a nightmare when I was arrested. Not just for being at the scene of the crime, but also for something far more sinister: money laundering. The authorities couldn't fathom how someone like me, with no apparent wealth or steady income, had amassed such a large sum to fund the creation of the gift. To them, it didn't matter that every penny came from selling cherished possessions and working grueling jobs around the clock. All they saw was a suspicious trail of transactions leading back to me. The trial was agonizing. Sitting in that sterile courtroom, surrounded by strangers whispering judgmental remarks, I felt utterly powerless. Honey was there too, sitting silently in the front row, her face unreadable. When called to testify, she hesitated before speaking. "I don't know what happened," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I trusted him." Those words cut deeper than any accusation ever could. Trust, a fragile bond I had shattered without meaning to. The judge's verdict came swiftly, 10 years behind bars. As the bailiff led me away in handcuffs, I caught one last glimpse of Honey. She didn't look up. In that moment, I realized she might never forgive me. Prison life was suffocating. Claustrophobic cells, harsh fluorescent lights, and endless days blending into nights. But the physical confinement paled in comparison to the emotional torment. Every day, I wrote letters to Honey, pouring my heart onto paper, hundreds of letters. Each one explained my intentions, begged for forgiveness, and reminded her of the love that had driven me to madness. At first, she didn't respond. Days turned into weeks, then months. Silence became my cruelest punishment. I imagined her burning each letter unopened, erasing me from her life completely. It wasn't until the third year that I received a single reply, a brief note saying, "I need time." Those 4 words kept me alive. They weren't forgiveness, but they weren't rejection either. Still, guilt consumed me. How could I have let this happen? My dream of giving her the perfect gift had morphed into a living hell. Not just for me, but for her as well. 5 years had passed since the day Honey last saw me in that courtroom, her face a mixture of betrayal and sorrow. I often wondered if she ever read the letters I sent from prison. Pages filled with apologies, explanations, and declarations of love so raw they left my hands trembling as I wrote them. For years, silence was her answer, an impenetrable wall between us. But then, one unexpected afternoon, I received a letter from her. "I'll see you." Just 3 words, but they carried the weight of redemption, or perhaps closure. The meeting took place on a rainy day, under the shelter of an old bridge where we used to dream about our future together. She looked different, older, wearier, but her eyes still held the same warmth I remembered. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked with emotion. I read every letter, she admitted, clutching a bundle of faded papers tightly against her chest. At first, I hated you for what happened, but now I realize it wasn't your fault. You gave everything. For me. Tears streamed down my face as I listened, my heart breaking all over again. Honey, I whispered, my voice hoarse. I don't regret any of it. Not the sacrifices, not the pain. What I regret is losing sight of what truly mattered. Us. My hands trembled as I reached out to touch hers, afraid she'd pull away. To my surprise, she didn't. Instead, she leaned closer, letting the rain mingle with her tears. You chase something so big, so impossible, she said softly. But sometimes the smallest moments are enough. Her words hit me like a tidal wave. All those sleepless nights, the financial ruin, the stolen gift. It all seemed insignificant compared to the simple joy of holding her hand again. We embraced then, crying silently in each other's arms, the years of separation dissolving into nothingness. It wasn't perfect. The scars would always remain. The legal battles, the lost years, the shattered dreams, they were etched into our souls forever. Yet in that moment, none of it mattered. I want to start over, I said, my voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. Not with grand gestures or impossible promises, just with us. Honey nodded, her grip tightening around me. We'll try, she replied, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. But it won't be easy. I knew she was right. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, and healing takes time. Still, as we stood there together, drenched and broken yet hopeful, I believed, truly believed, that love could conquer even the deepest wounds. In the end, the story wasn't about a gift at all. It was about the lessons we learned along the way. For years, I had chased something monumental, believing that grand gestures were the only way to prove my love. I poured every ounce of myself into creating something extraordinary, convinced it would be the defining moment of our relationship. But life has a way of humbling even the most determined hearts. The robbery, the legal battles, the years spent apart, they weren't just obstacles, they were reminders that the world doesn't always reward effort with success. And yet, through all the chaos and heartbreak, one truth emerged. Sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest meaning. As Honey and I stood together under that rain-soaked bridge, I realized how blind I had been. Love isn't found in statues or treasures. It's in the quiet moments, the shared laughter, the silent understanding, the simple act of holding hands. Those are the moments that endure when everything else crumbles. My obsession with perfection had cost us so much. Time, freedom, trust. Yet here we were, still willing to try again. That resilience, that unwavering belief in each other despite everything, that was what truly mattered. The scars of the past will never fully fade. There will always be nights when the memory of those lost years haunts me, when I wonder if I could have done things differently. But perhaps that's the point. Not to erase the pain, but to learn from it. If I had succeeded in giving her the perfect gift, maybe I would have missed this deeper lesson. That love isn't about chasing the unattainable. It's about cherishing what you already have. Honey once said, sometimes the smallest moments are enough. At the time, I didn't fully grasp what she meant. But now, as we rebuild our lives together, I understand. It's not about the size of the gesture or the scale of the sacrifice. It's about the intention behind it. Even after everything we've endured, I see now that our bond wasn't broken because it was built on something far stronger than material things. It was built on patience, forgiveness, and an unshakable connection. Life may throw storms our way, but as long as two hearts remain aligned, they can weather anything. Maybe the greatest gift I ever gave Honey wasn't the sculpture or the letters. It was the realization that love, in its purest form, is resilient enough to overcome even the darkest chapters. And that, more than anything, is worth holding on to. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.